Hi, everyone. Dr. Helen Marley here. When we think about all the skills that are needed to play the piano well, probably two rise to the very top of our list. The first one is how to have our students um, bring forth the musicality that is innate in every single person. How do they connect a piece with an audience, and how do they share this love for their music? The second great skill is how to learn excellent technique. And in succeeding at the piano, I focus on these two skills. Of course, I go through all the great fundamentals of any method of reading, rhythm, learning how to compose, sight reading, etc. But I also really focus on body friendly technique from the very beginning, as well as teaching students how to listen, how to create a beautiful sound, and how to explore their musical consciousness. So I invite you to look at all kinds of videos that I've created for you. Some of the videos are me teaching students, and some of the videos are tutorials so that I can just explain and demonstrate to you what I am thinking about as far as how to get our students from the very beginning levels all the way through advanced levels. So please explore this wonderful method with me and all of the terrific videos and books that I have for you. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Helen Marley, and I'm here to talk about one of my favorite subjects, Succeeding at the Piano, second edition, and the all-in-one approach, the why and the how. Whether you have been using Succeeding at the Piano for a while or are ready to begin to use this pedagogically strong and musically engaging method right now, I will explain its very special features. So why use Succeeding at the Piano? Because nine areas of study are taught throughout the series in a seamless, well-paced way. Each new concept is reviewed continuously so that students have a firm foundation in what they know before they move on to new concepts. These 9 areas of study are: number 1, rhythm; number 2, reading; number 3, fostering musicality from the very first week; number 4, healthy, natural technique; number 5, theory; number 6, oral skills or ear training, whichever one you call it; number 7, composition activities; 8, music history; and 9, attention given to how students should practice. In this particular video that you're watching right now, I will continue to answer basic questions about the method. We must start with the music. The music is what motivates children to learn, as you know. And in SATP, there is a fabulous mix of music: originals, classical, jazz, and folk. 7 different composers make these series interesting for all students. At the beginning of every level, each piece is listed with a composer who either arranged or composed the work. I wanted to give credit where it's due to everyone who worked on the music. The student pieces, as well as the accompanying duet parts, are absolutely terrific. And my goodness, I just love the music. So do my students, and all the feedback that we get from teachers is really exciting. Succeeding at the Piano sets the perfect balance. It has a steady and well thought out flow of concepts, introduced at the right time, while keeping the tasks challenging enough to push students to reach a higher level of piano playing. I focused on each level of Succeeding at the Piano equally, making sure to cater to the musical and technical needs of each level of students. So whether they're beginner level, going through late beginner level, all the way through intermediate level. How can teachers select the correct level of Succeeding at the Piano for each student? One really good way is to review the pages at the beginning of every book. So for example, at the beginning of grade 1A, there's a lovely page of review. And these are the concepts that were taught in the previous level. So for example, many transfer students do not have a grasp of their basic guide notes. So if that were the case, I probably wouldn't have them use 1A. I would have them go to lesson and technique book preparatory and go to the middle of the book when students are learning their guide notes on the staff. If a student doesn't understand 5-finger patterns and chords, have the student start in grade 2A. So it's this kind of darker purple color. If transfer students have trouble with playing their octave scales or they don't know key signatures, I would have them start in grade 2B. If they really have trouble with 6/8 time signature, oh my goodness, then I would start them in grade 3, as well as octave minor scales. I always believe that prevention is far better than correction. So we err on the side of caution when placing a transfer student into the curriculum. Plus, there's so much to learn in succeeding at the piano that the transfer student will be fine with backtracking a bit so that they truly have a strong foundation. It's actually a good idea to call all remedial work for transfer students review work. It's a much more positive term for something they should know and haven't learned yet. If you have transfer students working on more advanced repertoire and you place them in a lower level of SATP to catch up on holes in their rhythm and their reading and their theory or their technique or any other aspect of their musical education, then this is pedagogically correct. How are concepts introduced in succeeding at the piano? They are introduced in a variety of ways. First of all, the sheer joy of the imaginative titles and illustrations enhance the learning experience. There's great motivating music throughout this particular wonderful method. Answering questions about the music, students are always asked at the beginning, at the end of every piece, good questions. Students use valuable practice strategies so that they know how to practice. Friendly icons help students remember how to listen and observe, as well as technique icons that guide students to know which physical gesture to use for a particular sound. And I do use discovery learning throughout succeeding at the piano so that students experience the sound and the new concept first, and then we give them the definition. The targeted age level of succeeding at the piano, whether it's the second edition or the all-in-one. Let's see, these two approaches are designed to begin the prep level with 6 and 7-year-olds, but certainly they can be used for transfer students and older students. I know many teachers use the preparatory level for 4 and 5-year-olds as well. For the all-in-one, this is a very good series for transfer students or for students who from the very beginning are very quick learners. It's also good for students who only have 30-minute lessons. If you start your students in the all-in-one approach and feel like they need more reinforcement, you can move them into the second edition when they reach the end of a level. And likewise, if you started a student in the second edition and you think, oh my gosh, my student could go much faster than this, at the end of the level, you can just move them on to the next level of the all-in-one. When the all-in-one is finished with all 7 levels, your students can easily move from the all-in-one 2C to the second edition grade 3. So I've been asked, what about the keyboard exploration? First of all, the students move in pre-reading pieces from octave to octave across the piano keys. They learn middle C approach when they start on the staff, and then they explore more hand position changes by using what I call almost C position approach soon afterwards. Students move their hands further outside of the C position and middle C position in grade 1A. So for example, Students might use a different finger on a specific note. So if they're on middle C, my goodness, they might move away from middle C position so that their thumb is on a B or an A. Students learn to play pieces in D minor and F minor, and they also learn treble C position in grade 1A. You can see all of these hand position changes in the tutorials for each level of the method right here on this YouTube channel. So students learn second and third intervals by steps and skips in the preparatory level. There's a great deal of reinforcement of these two intervals as well as repeated notes. In grade 1A, second and third intervals are again reviewed, and then students learn fourth and fifth intervals. Since time is spent on learning patterns based on these intervals, as well as learning how to move when observing the 8VA and 15MA octave signs, the hand positions they learn are excellent and quite ample. Succeeding at the piano engages the students in all aspects of the principles of learning, and I will discuss these in another video. The video is actually called Succeeding at the Piano, the Principles of Learning. So now let's go on to video 1, Succeeding at the Piano Rhythm, the why and the how. So please subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you can get updates on how to refresh and how to engage and how to inspire our students' learning process. Okay, see you later. Aren't you glad that I'm wearing red for Succeeding at the Piano preparatory level? So this is the difference between the second edition and the all-in-one approach to succeeding at the piano. This is video number 1 of Succeeding at the Piano, the why and the how. So you might be asking yourself, why did Dr. Marley list rhythm as the number 1 area of study in succeeding at the piano? It's because the way that we teach rhythm will solidify a student's success. If not taught correctly in the beginning, students will always have issues with their counting and feeling a steady pulse. Students must internalize the rhythm from the very, very beginning. It's not enough to have a student just clap a rhythm when seated at the piano. And it's definitely not a good idea to have students sight read new pieces that they are going to practice during the week, because they end up playing notes incorrectly and they use poor fingering and they start to cultivate a start and stop syndrome throughout a piece because they have difficulty counting out loud while focusing on fingering and the notes. This start and stop syndrome is a very difficult habit to break. So the teaching of rhythm must be systematic. Rhythm must be felt from the top of the head to the very tips of the toes. We have to get our students up and moving to feel the beat. They must march and step and sway to the beat. They need to clap, tap, and snap to the beat. And they can point to the notes in a piece in rhythm while you're playing that piece. Speak the words or lyrics of the piece in rhythm. Even if your students are too young to read, speak or sing the words for them so that they understand the sing-songy phrasing that lyrics provide. Remember that the rhythm of any piece or exercise must be completely accurate and internalized before the student plays any piece. As you can observe in my tutorials, every pre-reading piece is taught in rhythm just to start the students off on a good foot. And then, of course, every single piece thereafter is taught in rhythm. The objective of all rhythmic activities is to produce easy flow and a steady rhythm. If rhythm is glossed over and is combined with the reading of the notes too soon, then what happens? Let's review. First of all, students can't count correctly. Secondly, they don't get used to counting out loud. Thirdly, they get confused between what finger numbers are and what is the counting. Number 4, They can't focus on what the notes are at the same time. And number 5, they get mixed up between 3/4 and 4/4 time, which is really quite ridiculous if we have them internalize the rhythm and clap, tap, snap, move to the beat in any way before they play their pieces. What is happening to these dear children? Too many facets of playing the piano are going on all at once. Therefore, if we focus on one aspect of making music at a time, the student will be very successful, and the success must begin with accurate rhythm. The quarter note rest is not introduced until grade 1A of the method. And you might ask, Dr. Marley, why wait to teach a basic quarter note rest? It's because we must make sure that the skill of learning the basic note values are firmly understood by our students before moving on. Another pedagogical reason for waiting for rest is because students' earliest encounters with music are by singing well-known folk songs. We can take a look at that wonderful little book, In Recital of Little Pieces for Little Fingers, Folk Songs. And we can see all kinds of folk songs that have no rest in them, like row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Other ways to instill good rhythm. Oh my gosh, there's so many really good ways. Having students write rhythm on a whiteboard, using the What Did I Change game, which I'll show you at another time. There's all kinds of great ways to get students to instill rhythm throughout their body. So please subscribe to this channel and you will see lots of wonderful videos to help you and inspire you with your teaching. Now, this is video number 2, and this concept is reading, from succeeding at the piano, the why and the how. One of the biggest reasons to use the method is so that students learn how to read. And why is it that so many students have trouble with reading? Let's talk about the merits of learning how to read language. This has long been debated, but experts in the field agree that using multiple reading approaches ensure the student's success. Some promote using the term phonics, while others encourage the use of the look and say approach. But if teachers and parents do both, the child reads very well. So just like the reading of language, using multiple music reading approaches ensures music reading success. And this is how Succeeding at the Piano is written. In light of this important language reading research, I use a combination approach to music reading in Succeeding at the Piano. The combination means using traditional note reading and intervallic reading. So you might ask me, what is traditional note reading? Well, this is the way that students have learned for generations, memorizing notes on the staffs and reading notes in specific hand positions. And what is intervallic reading? Learning the patterns in music, starting with what a step and a skip look and feel like. So when you look at my tutorials of the preparatory book A and B, you're going to see a lot of that and how to teach it. What happens when we combine these two approaches? Well, excellent readers are created. I must tell you that I was a music tree student growing up. And in my Master's of Fine Arts degree from Carnegie Mellon University and my Doctor of Music degree from Northwestern University, the professors used the music tree method. So I know intervallic reading inside and out. Elvina Truman Pierce, one of my professors at Northwestern, was a friend and a pedagogical partner to Frances Clark. She always taught intervallic reading the way I teach it in Succeeding at the Piano. So as you look through the tutorials, you're going to see the very special way that intervallic reading should be taught in its purest forms. If we wish our students to truly understand intervallic reading, we must use this teaching strategy. So another question that comes to mind is, why is off-staff pre-reading used at the beginning of Succeeding at the Piano? And some teachers say to me, no, I like it when my students just start on the staff. Well, by using the off-staff pre-reading approach, the student isn't confused with too many musical signs and notes all at once. The student may appear to be progressing more slowly than do others whose pianistic skills may be more easily acquired by learning mostly by ear, but we wish to create students who are musically literate. With the Succeeding at the Piano approach, it takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months for students to read well, but then they can read quite well. The goal is to have students reading with excellent rhythmic and technical control. When this foundation is laid, then the student can forge ahead unhindered. The dropout rate will be greatly reduced when students know how to read, have good rhythmic skills, and technical control, which is exactly what happens when they use SATP. So what can we do as teachers to instill good reading skills from the beginning? First of all, we have to instill guide notes every day. We have to make sure students explain to us why the note is called what it is. No guessing. Have students learn patterns, which are the intervals, so they can recognize them in the music and play them instantaneously. In Succeeding at the Piano, we have wonderful flashcard friends. They're so cute, little stick figures that help your students learn their notes. By both combined reading systems, we have fabulous note spellers that I did with Cynthia Coster. Have students use whiteboard, have them do the time to compose activities in the theory book. Lots of reading and lots of on their own pieces. So always give students lots of pieces to read. Something that's really important in Succeeding at the Piano is something that you might not see firsthand, and that is the role of the left hand. It has a combination of accompaniment and very interesting melodic lines. And since the left hand plays an equal role as the right hand from the very beginning, it gains even more independence throughout the method. Therefore, SATP is a very good preparatory way to segue into all kinds of music, and especially classical music. In Succeeding at the Piano, the left hand isn't relegated to just playing chords. So again, just to review how to have good readers as students, we want them to use a multiple combined reading system. We want them to read from many different books and use Succeeding at the Piano. And I have to say, there's so many great supplementary books and sheets students can use. Key signatures are taught earlier in SATP than other methods. They're taught in grade 2A, which helps them to learn their music reading even better. So you will see me do a lot of wonderful teaching for reading, and we hope that all of our students can learn how to be good readers so that they don't drop out of playing the piano. The third concept of Succeeding at the Piano is musicality from the very first week, the why and the how. Have you ever heard the statement, a pianist needs to know the sound they want to hear before they play? Well, this is true, but how do we start this special and vital skill when students are first learning how to play the piano? In order for students to be good musicians, they learn to listen to themselves as they play. And Succeeding at the Piano does this especially well in several specific ways. First of all, there's a little musicality girl that goes throughout the piano method. She is in a green oval, and she helps students listen and observe with all kinds of different questions. We can ask the questions before the students play their pieces as well as afterwards, so that we know that they're focusing on listening. Regularly throughout the series, students are asked if they played with a beautiful sound. I think this is so important for making beautiful music. There are many questions to evaluate their playing for musicality, and they are encouraged to think before they play, and also to critique their playing after they have played. For example, there's a unit in the prep level where there's a piece about a lion. So we have to ask our students, are you going to play forte or piano? And then there's another piece about a fish. And do we ask them the same thing? Of course. And our students will answer, I'm going to play it quietly, piano. I am so proud that the phrase is taught through the presentation of terrific classical repertoire, such as Mozart's Sonata in A major, the Merry Farmer by Schumann, and the Hungarian Dance No. 5 by Brahms. Our goal as teachers is to instill a love for music that will last an entire lifetime with a variety of eclectic musical styles, which includes classical music. Imagination is encouraged so that students can play with musicality. The titles of the pieces, the illustrations, and the lyrics give the student a springboard so that they can create their own imagery. And in this way, students will create music that is engaging to listen to and delightful for them to practice and to perform. You will see aspects of these 9 concepts that I started with in the beginning of this topic when you observe the teaching tutorials as well as all of my teaching videos on the FGH Succeeding at the Piano website. So please continue to subscribe to this channel so that you can get further updates on how to teach the piano well. Video number 4, the concept of teaching natural and healthy technique from the very beginning. Why do we want students to learn how to play the piano with healthy, natural technique? So that they can play musically, excel as far as they want to as pianists, and play without unnecessary tension at the instrument. Technique is seamlessly integrated throughout the lesson books and reinforced in the recital books. As a professional pianist and pedagogue, I want to encourage all teachers, if you don't teach technique, to not be nervous about learning it and then teaching it. I demonstrate for you through the Succeeding at the Piano tutorials and the other tutorials on this channel how to create the physical gestures that are needed to play the piano in a well-paced way and with a significant amount of reinforcement. We don't want our students to be players who don't play the piano very well. That's embarrassing for the student as well as for the teacher. Just as the ice skaters should learn how to skate properly, and the basketball players need to learn the correct techniques to be able to shoot a ball in a basket, or a painter who needs to learn about paper, paints, and brushes, we need to teach our students the most wonderful physical gestures so that the student moves and plays the piano beautifully. As Succeeding at the Piano teaches excellent technique, I also will expel some of the fallacies or myths that have been and still are pervasive for over a century. My goodness. One of them is actually moving your thumb underneath your palm and practicing like that. Right? That is a really, really uncomfortable way to practice scales and arpeggios and ways to have students really be tormented physically. You will start to see how well your students play and how good they sound when using the basic technical features in Succeeding at the Piano. The most effective way to teach technique is by developing good habits from the very beginning. In Succeeding at the Piano, we reinforce and review every technique until it is a habit. The techniques students learn in this method help them to understand the connection between motion and sound. One of our responsibilities as teachers is to teach students how to play with fluid coordination, reducing tension in the hands, wrist, arms, and shoulders, and torso. Friendly icons throughout Succeeding at the Piano remind students which physical gestures they should use for a desired sound. Physical gestures, as you know, are any motions that create sound. Succeeding at the Piano teaches students basic physical gestures such as dropping and rolling forward and out of the key, the roll of the thumb, the elbow, the upper arm, and the entire playing apparatus, rotation, and ways to produce power, as well as beautiful musical lines with excellent articulation. Succeeding at the piano is a high-quality method for everyone's enjoyment. Teach your students in the best possible way to be successful, and let your students have a lot of fun practicing the piano. Now we're going to cover concepts numbers 5 through 7. So this is theory, ear training, and composition activities. These skills are all found in the Succeeding at the Piano theory and activity books. So that is the third book of the trio of books. You have the lesson and technique book, the recital book, and then the theory and activity book. Having students use the theory and activity book is essential for their well-rounded musical education. Actually, starting in grade 4 of the method, there are things called quick analysis assignments so that students learn how to analyze chords and phrasing in their music. So that happens in grade 4. Of course, it happens sooner than that, but in grade 4, there are specific assignments called quick analysis. Oral skills or ear training. In the lesson and recital books, the Musicality girl appears all the time to remind students what to listen for and what to observe. Students learn how to listen to intervals and how to sing them in the theory and activity books. And you'll notice that I use the same well-known songs for every interval, and I add more intervals as the students learn them in their lesson books. Students learning these skills will be able to correct mistakes if they occur. I suggest that students use at the same time the Right Play and Hear Your Theory Every Day series that's in the FJH Pianist curriculum, because there is so much valuable ear training in that series. So in the theory and activity book, there is a little follow the leader activity. There is parrot play. And then the Musicality girl is throughout the theory book as well for overall ear training. Composition activities start very, very small and then grow into sizable assignments in grades 3, 4, and 5. They are called time to compose activities. And the composition activities always review a new concept that is taught in the lesson books. Obviously, students will learn new concepts better if they also compose pieces based on those concepts. So please enjoy the theory, ear training, and composition activities throughout Succeeding at the Piano. The number 8 concept of Succeeding at the Piano is students learn about classical composers throughout the method in a fun and engaging way. They see pictures of the composers, they learn about their lives, and they play music about them. And there are also classical pieces in their original form. The friendly icons of master composers all throughout all of the levels help your students learn musical and technical concepts. Examples of some of the music, my goodness, there's one called Mozart and His Sister, so students learn about Nannaro, Mozart's older sister. They play a wonderful little Haydn concerto. They play so many different pieces. And you'll notice in my listening list on the YouTube channel, just an entirely long listening list of classical and folk music that students can learn that are from Succeeding at the Piano. Some other things that are really exciting about Succeeding at the Piano is that every technique page is guided by a master composer that makes students want to learn their technique every week. And they learn different time periods and stylistic traits of the different eras. There's also a Composer's Hall of Fame at the end of every theory book. And the student reviews the composers they have played and learned throughout that particular level of the method. So what a great way to reinforce music history. There are friendly icons of master composers, as I was telling you about before, and they help your students learn musical and technical concepts. The number 9 concept of Succeeding at the Piano is the attention to how students should practice. We definitely want our students to learn how to practice efficiently and effectively. We all know that if students are not practicing well, They will waste time during their practice sessions at home and waste our teacher's time during the lesson. These practice strategies, if followed, will serve your students incredibly well. So some really good examples of excellent practice strategies are found in every level, and like all the other areas of study, are reinforced repeatedly so that students remember them. Prevention is far better than correction. One concept that is very important in learning how to play the piano well is sight reading. I chose to keep this skill separate from the piano method because it is so important and needs time at the lesson as well as every day to practice it well. Therefore, I always use from the FJH Pianist curriculum sight reading and rhythm every day. There are 14 books to this series, and it is a most excellent way to have students learn how to read well. I will provide a link for this excellent series collaborated on with Dr. Kevin Olson below. So please enjoy succeeding at the piano, and of course, let me know how well your students are enjoying it. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Helen Marley. The Principles of Learning, How Succeeding at the Piano, or Piano Success in South Korea, addresses these 7 important topics for music education. The first principle of learning is readiness for learning. We don't want our students to be ill, overly tired, or overly stimulated by different activities. In the very beginning of succeeding at the piano, it is stated what you need is a piano or an 88-key keyboard, the desire to learn, time to practice, and your imagination. The second principle of learning is teach the concepts consistently. Have students practice the new concepts consistently, and then musical success is achieved. This is the second edition. You will certainly see how consistent reinforcement occurs when using the Succeeding at the Piano series. Whether it's a new rhythm, interval, musical, or technical concept, there is always plentiful reinforcement. For example, in the prep level, there are about 5 to 6 pieces to reinforce each new rhythmic concept. The third principle of learning is have the students be in a lesson where praise, kindness, and honesty occurs. Have them leave the lesson feeling good about their success and the feeling that they know what to do at home to be successful. Yes, absolutely. In my recent MTNA webinar called Fostering Artistic Personality, I spoke about how positive pedagogy is one of the 12 necessary fundamentals in order to have successful students, and especially those who will love music and not be scarred by negative teaching. The fourth principle of learning is primacy. Teachers need to present subject matter in a logical order, making sure that the students have already learned the preceding step. Of course, the second edition and the all-in-one approach to succeeding at the piano have excellent pacing so that students understand concepts before adding on others to the fundamentals. There is always a logical and step-by-step approach to learning. I also want to add that succeeding at the piano recognizes that learning is non-linear and creates a pacing system that encourages natural learning cycles. There are plateaus, which are natural, and they are necessary to the learning process. After a period of growth, one needs to rest to assimilate what has been learned. Students will have both intellectual and emotional growth. This adjustable pacing that one finds throughout succeeding at the piano is readily seen throughout the method. There's growth, rest, and then we begin the process all over again. Adjustable pacing is important to all of us who are committed to excellent pedagogy. The fifth principle of learning is things that most recently are learned are best remembered. In succeeding at the piano, students have constant review of concepts so that the information is always fresh and interesting. Having theory, ear training, and composition as part of the daily work, but in a separate book, makes this particular information important to the student and not just a little side dish for thought. The sixth principle of learning is an exciting learning experience will most likely be retained. Absolutely, we know this is true. We teachers must be positive and enthusiastic about what we teach. Terrific music, illustrations that really help visual learners understand the concepts, fabulous teacher duet parts, discovery learning, and the cultivation of imagery and imagination. Let your personality and the personality of Succeeding at the Piano work wonders for you and your studio. So many times teachers have exclaimed, the pieces in this series help students to imagine so much more clearly. Imagination is encouraged so that students can play with musicality. The titles of the pieces, the illustrations, and the lyrics give the student a springboard so that they can create their own imagery in their mind. The illustrations, painted by two stunning artists from London, England, are a huge aesthetic plus for this method because it combines the visual and oral arts. The last principle of learning is freedom. Students must have freedom. Freedom of choice, freedom of action, freedom to bear the results of action. These are the three great freedoms that constitute personal responsibility. Since the teaching of music is so expansive, there is a correlating pianist curriculum that will help you teach every student as an individual. I will work through the series that help you make the best musicians ever. From the sight reading and rhythm series, the theory and ear training series, 3 different technique series, one called Energize Your Fingers Every Day, and another called Play Your Scales and Chords Every Day, and Etudes with Technique, which are part of the Festival Collection series. There is also a series called the Intervallic Reading series, which is a great way to teach patterns in music. And I will, in this YouTube channel, demonstrate some of the repertoire series, such as Succeeding with the Masters, the student activity books based on the master composers, the Festival Collection, In Recital, Sonatinas, Etudes with Technique, and the Contemporary Keyboard editions. All of these choices are not meant to make you nervous. They are meant to help you make smart choices for each student and build a solid foundation for a lifetime of